Hey, what's happening, family? It's your man, Mark Black. You know what time it is. Happy Hump Day to all of you. Welcome to the Wednesday midweek broadcast here on Black Outcast Media. Today, we are going to discuss a topic that I think is of great importance. By the way, before I even go into it, remember, check the description box below. There's links to reports and resources to help you get up on your ADOS advocacy. Right? Make sure that you understand not just what we're fighting for, but why we fight. Also, if you decide to do so, there are links there to support me. Either you could do it via PayPal. I also have Cash App available. I am asking, though, that if you're able, join my Patreon, especially in light of the fact that some projects that I'm going to be working on, your investment in my work via Patreon is going to help me to fund those. Trust me, I'm going to put in my own, you know what I'm saying? I carry my own weight, but where you're able to help, even if it's just $1 a month, fam, it will definitely be needed and appreciated. First of all, I want to get started by doing my usual. Let me shout out everybody in the chat. Jay Fire, I know you splitting, but shout out to you, fam. Brother Zulu, my brother in Logic, peace to you, fam. Void Ninjas in the house. Brother Chad, also known as ADOS Reparation 2020, is in the house. My brother Double C from Another Mother is in the house. I see you, fam. Sister Christine, beloved Sister Christine's in the house. Toolbox is in the house. Brother Albert's in the house. What's good, fam? I see you. Remember, fam, the rules. If you show up, you don't have to participate, but let us know you're here. Let me shout you out and show you some love for your time and the whole 9 yards, okay? Now, there's a couple of announcements that I would like to make. First of all, it was awesome being able to call in and speak with Yvette on Monday. As you all well know, I love the sister. I esteem her to like the nth degree. And we had us a damn fine conversation on her broadcast Monday night. So if you didn't tune into that one, you missed a treat. It was a lot of great callers. And the topic actually inspired the topic that we're going to discuss today. Shout out to Sister Yvette. Wonderful, wonderful broadcast. And I don't think that we spend actually enough time discussing the topic that she brought up on Monday night. Because you will find most often, fam, that we labor under some serious mental apprehensions that just do not reflect the reality of our circumstances and our situation here in the United States as the American descendants of slavery. And Yvette is always at her best when she is disillusioning us, when she is wiping away the veil from our eyes and letting us see clearly exactly where it is that we stand, not just politically, but socially, economically, in the whole 9 yards. And every broadcast I have, that is my goal, to pull the wool from over your eyes and to make a new Mark Black, right? So shout out to Sister Yvette for allowing us to have that place to speak. Like I said, it was an amazing, amazing, amazing back and forth. By the way, shout out to my brother Black Dollars University. Toolbox, I see you, fam. The Toolbox is in the house. Before I continue, let me also shout out Jay Fire. Thank you for the donation via SuperChat, fam. I appreciate all of the love and support. I do have another announcement that I like to make. Some of you are familiar with our brother Travis, also known as Black Dollars University, who just popped in the chat, which is awesome. It's good to see you, fam. As you know, the brother is organizing a march in March, funnily enough, a march in Selma for us as ADOS. But this time, it is not going to be a bloody Sunday, fam. We are going there marching in triumph, right? On the 27th of March of next year, 2020, and the 28th, he's going to have an event there where we're going to get an opportunity. Oh, you know what, Jay Fire? Let me get that information for you. I'll pop it into the chat. But we're going to have an opportunity to stand there, literally, in the shoes of our ancestors, right? At a place that marked essentially the turning point of the civil rights movement of our parents' generation. And we're going to inaugurate and herald the rebirth of our struggle for yet again another generation, right? For our generation. We're announcing our presence there at a moment where we're ostensibly supposed to have taken an L, but we're going there holding the W, fam. And the announcement that I would like to make is that I have been asked, and with great humility, and it's an absolute honor, I intend to be a guest speaker at the event. Thank you, Brother C. I appreciate you, fam, for the love. So I will be there March 27th, 28th. I will be speaking at the event. Salam alaikum, pretty Muslim. Glad to see you, sister, and happy hump day to you. Actually, proper response, wa alaikum assalam. Yes, I have been asked, and I accept gratefully and humbly the opportunity to speak to you, fam. So if you have the chance, come March, right? March 27th, March 28th of 2020. Clear your schedule. Be there in Selma with us as we herald the rise of our people once again, to press home this justice claim, to stand in the shoes of our ancestors and announce to America and the whole world that although America has tried to squash us, squelch us, kill us, destroy us, we are still here, the living evidence of the greatest crime committed against any group of Americans, and we are going to demand our due. All right? So, with that announcement having been made, fam, let's get right into it. For those of you who participated or watched Yvette's broadcast on Monday, right, you will know that a topic came up that I don't think we discussed nearly enough, right? This topic of so-called coalitions of other ethnic groups or other ethnicities with ADOS, right? We've already kind of gotten it through our heads, or at least for the most part, we seem to have gotten it through our heads that our political action demands an exchange, not a gift. We're not America's mules. We are not here to politically pull the plow for the Democrats or the Republicans. If they're not offering something for us in exchange for our vote, then we have no obligation whatsoever to provide them our vote. By the way, shout out to Carmen, to Life, to Love Natural. I appreciate you showing up, and happy hump day to you. Welcome to the broadcast. Here's the thing, fam. We often are placed in circumstances, however, where we're told that we are a part of various groups, right? As you all well know, the very infamous now term to refer to us of people of color, which we as ADOS don't go for no more, right? Terms like minority, we don't have that shit no more. We don't go for that, right? But fam, I need you to understand just what these terms have truly done to blunt our efforts in pressing home our justice claim. Let me run down for you sort of a brief history lesson, if you will. At one time in the United States of America, fam, there was really only two ethnic groups that any American concerned themselves with. There were whites, right, which of course made up the English colonizers that came here and took the land from the native folk. Some French folk, of course, because the French did help the Americans during the Revolutionary War, right? Some German folk, and so on and so forth. Irish, Poles, other folk were added in or, grafted into whiteness in America later on. But when you were talking about whiteness, you were essentially talking about English folk or the descendants of the English colonizers that took over America. And the other ethnic group of note was us, the American descendants of slavery. That was it. Now, that is not to say, of course, there were not other ethnic groups. There were some ethnic Chinese, fam, who came here, come to Golden Mountain looking for opportunity, especially in the late 18th century. And there were others. There, of course, were also what we now refer to as Hispanic or Latinos, right? They were primarily the mixture of Spaniards and the natives that were here in the Central American area and southwestern American area or Southwest America, right? We're talking California, Mexico, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, so on and so forth, right? But these groups were second fiddle to the interests of the white colonizers and the American descendants of slavery. Now, as time progressed, we saw the increase of immigration from Europe and new ethnic groups from Europe show up and be added to whiteness, such as Hungarians, Poles, Yugoslavians, Ukrainians, Russians, Lithuanians, so on and so forth. Shout out to you, by the way, Minutes Till Dawn. I see you, fam, and welcome to the broadcast. Happy Hump Day to you. But strangely enough, there were no numbers that were brought here in great amounts that added to the ethnic makeup of ADOS. Up until the 1960s even. When you talked about blackness in America, there was only one group you talked about. This is not to say we didn't have black immigrants. But black immigrants who came here immediately found out during Jim Crow that they would have to, for their own survival, for their own benefit, align themselves with the interests, the goals, the aims, the agendas, the aspirations of ADOS in order to make it anywhere. This is why we saw during the civil rights era, people, immigrant people, brothers and sisters like Sidney Poitier, like Harry Belafonte, and so on and so forth, who firmly and fully align themselves with our struggle for our civil rights, for America to finally honor the promises made in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the Constitution of the United States, in the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and so on and so forth. When you look at individuals like Harry Belafonte, like Sidney Poitier, there was no hesitation. They understood that as black people, their interests could only be furthered by their connection to our interests. And our ancestors, our forebears, were able to press home some of the greatest changes in our struggle that America has ever seen, right? With the Civil Rights Act of 1966, with the Voting Rights Act, and so on and so forth. But what you have today is something completely different, fam. It is an absolute strange animal. Because what you have now is other ethnic groups who do not share any of the history of America. And when I say the history of America, our history as ADOS is American history. So they don't share the history of America. They don't share the history of struggle, of strife, of defrauding, of lynching, of convict leasing, of debt peonage, of sharecropping, and so on and so forth. They don't share any of that. Yet when it comes to dividing up the largesse, which is rightfully ours, they found a way to use our story, our history, our narrative to further their own aims. And fam, it didn't just start in the civil rights era. Because as you well know from the broadcast on Monday, the so-called feminists had started trying to inject themselves into our due even as far back as our emancipation post-slavery. People like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, people like Susan B. Anthony, and so on and so forth. Right? These feminists who said that it was an insult to white womanhood to give the franchise to the formerly enslaved black man before you give it to the free, intelligent white woman. Ostensibly, they saw us as savages who weren't ready yet to exercise the franchise, whereas them as women walked in rarefied air. They had the intellect and the mental capacity to understand how to utilize the franchise was their fucking argument. What's up, Frida Green? Yeah, that was a conversation I had with Sister Yvette the other day. So here's the thing. Ever since our emancipation from slavery, there has always been an effort to blunt any type of transfer of wealth, influence, resources, autonomy to us from America. And the white woman has always been at the forefront of it since the beginning. When you look at later feminists like Margaret Sanger, did you all know that Margaret Sanger was also an avid eugenicist? For those of you who are unfamiliar with what eugenics is, eugenics literally from the Greek means good genes. Eugenicists believe that by breeding out bad genes and only allowing good genes people to breed, that we would improve the human race. But strangely enough, though, Margaret Sanger looked at our genetic contribution as deficient. We were morons and submorons and idiots. We were to be sterilized if kept around and killed if not. But Margaret Sanger is looked up to by feminists even today. How many of you sisters out there thinking that you were aligning yourself with something that supported your interests really understood the history of first and second wave feminism before you jumped on board that train? People that you idolize have consistently worked against our interests. That's why the title of this broadcast is called Friendly Fire. Let me define for you, fam, what friendly fire is. As you all know, I am a veteran, right? United States Army, Persian Gulf, Signal Corps, right? In the military, whenever you're on maneuvers, right? Whenever you're out there actively executing a mission and there is an engagement, some sort of hostile engagement, right? You all know that you run the risk of dying for your country, right? Bullets don't have no eyes nor names. And the enemy wants to go home just like you want to come home. Most soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines are all right with that. They know when they sign on the dotted line that there's a chance that whenever they're sent somewhere, they're not coming home. But what they don't sign up for is what's called friendly fire. Friendly fire is when you are fired upon, literally, by someone who is ostensibly on your side. So you are in a firefight and the enemy's downrange, and one of your fellow soldiers is behind you, and he's maneuvering him to position, and he stumbles and squeezes the trigger on his 16 and blows the back of your head off. You are just as dead as you would be if the enemy killed you, but it wasn't the enemy. It was your ally who caused your demise. Thus the term friendly fire. And friendly fire happens in all sorts of circumstances. For example, an artillery strike on your position from your own lines. That also constitutes friendly fire. Or an airstrike where bombs are dropped on your position. That also constitutes friendly fire. Now, I for one take umbrage with the term friendly, but I understand what it means. Essentially, it means that you've been shot, blown apart, fired upon by somebody who wasn't supposed to do it to you. We need, as ADOS, to look at this so-called coalition that we consistently are ascribed to be a part of. And not just look at that coalition, but understand the crimes committed against us by that so-called coalition. We need to understand the crimes of the coalition. Everybody always wants to talk about black and brown people. But when you do the work, when you look at the data, you realize that if brown people had it as bad as ADOS people had it, these motherfuckers would run. You look at arrest records, and it doesn't matter where you look. Look all over the country. Wherever you have so-called black and brown people, black people disproportionately, overwhelmingly suffer negative consequences as compared to so-called brown people, Arabs, East Indians, Latinos, and so on and so forth. Yet, whenever anybody wants to talk about what's happening to us specifically, everybody wants to say, what's happening to black and brown people? This shit is not happening to black and brown people. It's happening to black people, specifically ADOS. But you have to ask yourself a question, fam. You have to ask yourself a question. Why is it that brown people are not saying anything against the appellation, right? I mean, let's be frank here, fam. Everybody wants to be black until it's time to be black. If brown people have an option to not be treated like black people, they will choose not to be associated or treated as black in America, right? So why is it then that you're not hearing an uproar from brown people about this so-called black and brown coalition, this black and brown alliance? Well, I'll tell you why, fam. Because they benefit. Let me shout out to Tab Liquors in the house. Easy be easy. I see you, fam. Happy hump day to you. Welcome to the broadcast. And my beloved esteemed brother Tazaba is in the house. What's good, I? Listen, fam. The data shows clearly that whatever is happening that is negative, that is deleterious, it is not happening to brown people. At least nowhere near to the extent that it is happening to us. And Zulu hit on a particular point. The mass of Hispanics who are able to do so identify as white. George Zimmerman kills our brother Trayvon. And the news reported at first that he was white. It was only later on that it turns out that we find out that he's part German and part Hispanic. But you notice they never stopped referring to him as white. We never stopped referring to him as white. Why is that? You see, fam, I would argue that we are put into this coalition for the same reason that the feminists struggled to co-opt our history, to co-opt our struggle, our narrative, for the same reason, for their own selfish gain, for their own benefit. Let me share something with you, fam, that I find extremely interesting. When I was young, right? I was born in the 70s, 1973 as a matter of fact. When I was born in the 70s, I grew up in a housing project. And in that housing project, we had people of all ethnicities. We had mostly black folk, but we had quite a few white folk, a lot of Asian folk, specifically Vietnamese. Because as you remember, fam, 73, the Vietnam War didn't technically end until 75. So a lot of people who immigrated from Vietnam during the Vietnam War came to America. And of course, they ended up in housing projects and things like that, right? My best friend when I was a boy was a Vietnamese kid named Sam, right? Now, as a young black boy in PJs, I never looked at Sam as anything strange. I mean, I knew he was different than me, but Sam was my friend. He belonged there just like I did. And so if anybody wanted to hurt Sam or his family, they had to come through me, right? I would defend Sam like I would anybody else that I care for. I went to school with quite a few Asian folk. Even had a crush on a little Asian girl, a Vietnamese girl in school named Han, right? She's a pretty little thing. Again, I had no bigotry in me. I didn't care that she was from Asia or whatever the case may be. She was at my school, part of my community. We mostly black folk, but she's there too. Matter of fact, she was my class valedictorian. These same Asian folk, however, that we gave an entree to, right? These refugees from Vietnam, immigrants from Thailand, from Korea, and so on and so forth. When they came here, they were able to get a foothold. Now, they had to chafe, fam, against the appellation of being what's referred to nowadays as the model minority, right? Asian folk have had to deal with this stereotype that they're all smart, they all love science and math, they all get good grades in school, right? But isn't it interesting, fam, that as Asians have gotten a foothold in this country, utilizing the same tools, the same access to resources that poor black ADOS people had, right? In other words, nobody was telling them that because they're Asian, they couldn't get housing. Nobody was telling them that because they were Asian, they couldn't get food stamps or WIC or welfare. Nobody was telling them that because they're Asian, they couldn't get jobs and so on and so forth. And we paved the way for them to have that possible. Now that they have basically made their entree into whiteness, because yes, fam, make no mistake, Asians are the new white. Yeah, I said it. YouTube's probably going to demonetize this broadcast, fam, so please hit the super chat and support a brother, because I'm going to tell the goddamn unvarnished truth today. Asian is the new white in America. You think I'm kidding? Mitch McConnell, descendant of slave masters, who laughed in our face when we told him, Mitch better have my money, is married to a Chinese woman. Now, let me ask you a question, fam. Should someone in the government propose something that could deleteriously affect Asian folk, how likely is it that you think that Senator Mitch McConnell is going to support that legislation, knowing he's got to go home to whatever the hell his wife's name is, Ling Ling or whatever the hell? What is the odds that you think that Wall Street, that Silicon Valley is going to go against the interests of Asian Americans when they're predominantly overrepresented on Wall Street, in Silicon Valley, and so on and so forth? Answer me that. Last time I checked, fam, the only group that had the complexion for the protection for the connection was motherfucking white folks. Ergo, if white folks are giving Asians the same protections that they have, Asians are white. Yet, Asians are still classified in America as minorities. So an Asian motherfucker can go and open up a business and confab with their white relatives and this, that, and the third because they love intermarrying with white folk. And they can get millions of dollars in government contracts, millions of dollars in government set-asides. They can use their connections to whiteness to get an audience before the president and get executive orders signed, giving them more money for business, more money for growth, more money, and so on and so forth. And you paved the way for it. But now that you have paved the way for it, what is it that the Asians want to do to you? They want to slam the goddamn door in your face. Asians have been at the forefront on the war against affirmative action. The absolute forefront. Don't forget, fam, that whole Supreme Court ruling against affirmative action, that lawsuit was started by a group of Asian students from Harvard. Now, mind you, Asians have never had a motherfucking problem getting into Ivy anything. They can go to Yale. Matter of fact, these colleges would rather have Asians, Chinese, Taiwanese, Japanese, Vietnamese, Thai. They would rather have those students. Why? Because it allows them to check the diversity box, and they know because they don't share any American history that they're not likely to be rabble rousers or radicals or cause trouble on campus. So if you're Asian and you get even reasonably good grades, your ass has got an entree into any Ivy League college you ever want to get in. How many of y'all are familiar with that Mindy Kaling chick? The dark-skinned Hindu Indian chick, the East Indian woman, the comedian / actress, Mindy Kaling. Hit a 1 in the chat if you're familiar with Mindy Kaling. Go ahead, fam, because I'm going to talk about it today. All right. So as you all know, Mindy Kaling is East Indian, right? She's from the Indian subcontinent. She's Indian, all right? Her punk ass brother, who's pretty much a no-name nobody, mediocre, average, so on and so forth. Yeah, I mean, she's probably a Brahmin, right? Or one of those upper caste Hindus or whatever the case may be. You see what I'm saying? Right? But her no-name, nobody, gray man, punk ass brother couldn't get into the college that he wanted to get into, right? You know, because he Asian and he says so. So what does he do? He applies to medical school as a black person to get in. He took a slot from one of you who were qualified, who busted your hump, studied your ass off, stayed up 1, 2 in the morning studying A&P. I know, I took A&P. That shit's hard. 206 bones in the adult human body. And you not only have to know them all, but you have to know the connections to them all. Don't even get me started on the thousands of muscles that are in the human body. And you have to know the names, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, you know what I'm saying, the right ventricle, the left, all that other shit. You have to know it all. You stayed up late at night with your Grey's Anatomy book, pen and shit. And this motherfucker posed as one of you to get into college. And you want to hear something crazy about it, fam? This motherfucker went and bragged publicly that he did it. And you know what happened to him? Nothing. Not a damn thing. Sorry about the noise, fam. My son just got home. Nothing happened to him. Nothing happened to him, fam. Nothing. All right? But now remember that sister who told the school district that her kid lived in that district and was using an address in a different district to get her kid into a school where her kid might actually learn something, ended up getting, what, 12 years in prison for defrauding the school district? Mindy Kaling's brother bragged about stealing a spot that was meant for ADOS. But then again, though, is it meant for ADOS? Because now you have our brothers and sisters from across the diaspora and the continent who come here after we done blazed all the trails, after we done got our asses kicked, after we done paid the blood price for every inch of ground we've been able to take away from America, and they jump right in happily and take every damn slot that's meant for you. So the first Harvard this isn't you, even though they say the first, editor of the Harvard Law Review is black. First black editor is Barack Obama. Barack Obama's not you. He's Kenyan and American white. But they gave the appellation of the first black to him. There's a lady there at Harvard right now, like first dean of the medical school of Harvard or something like that. She's African. So they tell us we don't value them. We don't respect brothers and sisters from the Caribbean or other diaspora nations. We don't respect brothers and sisters from the continent, right? But what in the hell is there to respect when the first thing they do is come here and slit our damn throats? The crimes of the so-called coalition. Because the only ones that are actually upholding solidarity with these motherfuckers is us. When it comes time to ensure that we get fed, you can't find them. I'm so sick of damn terms like black and brown people. I'm beyond sick of it. Because when you look at the evidence, there is nothing that ties so-called black ADOS people and brown people together. Nothing. You look at incarceration rates, there's no tie. You look at income, there's no tie. You look at access to generational wealth, there's no goddamn tie. You look at access to education, there's no tie. So where the hell is the coalition? And in this coalition, who is it that's benefiting and who isn't? I'm looking at Latinos, and everybody's slating Latinos to be the largest growing ethnic group in the United States that will turn America into a majority, or turn whites into a majority minority, or whatever the case may be, supposedly in 30 years, and this, that, and the third. But strangely enough, I don't see the Hispanic caucus in Congress advocating for ADOS interests. No, they advocate for Hispanic interests. As well they should. That's who the hell they represent. People of color, black and brown people, minorities, my fucking ass. Every single ethnic group that comes here, every single one who is not ADOS learns one important thing before they do anything else in America. And they learn that their only chance at a true assimilation and entree into the mainstream of America means that they have to put boot to neck to ADOS. Every single ethnic group learns that. You want to know what's one of the first English words? This is anecdotal. I don't have any evidence to support this, but I've got enough experience to know that this is true. You know what's one of the first English words that every new immigrant learns? Motherfucker. That's one of the first words. The second word is nigga. Latinos feel real free-hearted using that term, especially when they're around us. Latinos will drop an M-bomb in a heartbeat and look at you crazy if you say something. Now you got Asians running around calling each other the N-word. One of the very first words they learn in America is a derogatory when used against my lineage and my people. One of the very first. Man, I'm telling you, take a motherfucking Uber from an immigrant who can barely speak English. But I guarantee you, if you piss him off, he knows how to call your black ass a nigga. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Every ethnic group that comes here, if you are not native to here, in other words, if you are not one of the Aboriginal Americans who was here pre-1492, if you're not one of the white colonizers, or if you're not one of the American descendants of slavery, every ethnic group that comes here understands and learns very quickly that their only entree into Americanness is through the denigration, the decimation of ADOS. Period. Absolutely. They all know it. Here's the thing. Their job is to make sure that you don't know it. This is why you constantly see all these references to black and brown people, people of color, minorities. It's an unwritten rule that you can get your entree. You can get access to help, to resources. You can get access to education. You can get access to jobs. You can get access to all of that as long as you sign on to the white supremacist experiment of the United States of America. Asians have thrown their lot whole hog in with that. Latinos, in the main, I would argue, have thrown their hat in the ring whole hog on the side of white supremacy. Palestinians and Arabs have thrown their hat in the ring on the side of white supremacy. East Indians have thrown their hat in the ring on the side of white supremacy. Some West Indians have thrown their hat in the ring on the side of white supremacy, and some of them are darker than me. Because everybody knows the rules. The rule is you can have anything you want in America as long as you make sure that you work to deny it to the American descendants of slavery, full stop. So the only people that are being fooled by this coalition talk, by this alliance talk, is us. And like Yvette, I have to wonder where the hell did this happen? Like, when you look at the data, it is absolutely categorically clear that there is no alliance that anyone has with the American descendants of slavery. No one. The data makes it clear. Shout out to VLB and Shabazz, by the way. Happy Hump Day. Welcome to the broadcast. I also see you, $316 and Animus Prime. I see you. No one is aligned with us. Our esteemed ancestor, John Henry Clark, said, ADOS has no friends. He never lied. Fam, I want to share with you something. Let me show you an article here. This is from the Los Angeles Times, all right? This article here details some incidents where Latino street gangs were actually firebombing black families in California to run them out of the neighborhood, right? They were prosecuted under federal hate crimes legislation. right? They said that the order for the attack came from figures in the Mexican mafia. For those of you who are not familiar, the Mexican mafia is essentially a criminal syndicate ran from prison that controls Latino gang street life. It's not the cartels that controls the gangs on the streets. It's La M, right? That means the M in Spanish. La M, the Mexican mafia. The Mexican mafia gave orders for these people to attack black families in a traditionally black neighborhood in Los Angeles. They used incendiary devices and explosions, right? And it was basically to push black people out of their community. This is just one example of Latinos working against our interest. I mentioned to you that the 1960s was our impetus to push home as best we were able our justice claim. We did not succeed in that effort, but we did succeed in inspiring a lot of motherfuckers to do that, right? So we had people like Cesar Chavez and United Farm Workers who organized in the 60s, right? You had groups like La Raza, right, that organized out of the tumult of the 1960s, right? You had white groups like Students for Democratic Society, SDS, that actually attacked a federal motherfucking building, a federal building, right? You had some radical people born out of the 60s, born from our struggle, our fight to press home our justice claim. You had radical feminism born in the 1960s, headed by people like Gloria Steinem, and so on and so forth. One thing, though, that was common to all of them is that in the beginning, many of those so-called radical groups bent the knee to ADOS. They openly admitted that they took their inspiration for their struggle, for their revolutionary struggle, from the struggle of ADOS to be made fully American. Everybody admitted it, right? What is that group that they had in New York that had the Brown Berets, the Angels, some sort of the Brown Angels or something like that? Some Latino group that always was seen with the motherfucking Black Panthers. But see, fam, the problem was for us is that we were so hyphy that people were acknowledging the reality of our circumstances. Thank you, Monty, the guardian angels, right? We were so hyphy that people were actually saying, yeah, black folk have been done hard, that we've been hard pressed, that oppression has been our lot, that we failed to vet a lot of these motherfuckers. So it turns out that people like Gloria Steinem was also working very closely with the feds. We now know through the declassified documents of COINTELPRO that the FBI regularly used infiltrators to infiltrate our groups, to cause conflict between disparate black groups who were organized for the same thing, but end up having us at war with each other, right? Pretty Muslim is right. We do need to keep pressing, but that's not the lesson I want you to take away from all this. The lesson I want you to take away from this is not what happened when they were allegedly a part of a coalition with us. I want you to take away what happens now that they've made their entree, right? There was once upon a time in this country when to be a Latino was basically to be a nobody. Nobody necessarily hated you, But nobody gave a fuck about you. This wasn't your country. Sure, Pepe could come and kick it. No, Pretty Muslim, I don't speak French, at least not fluently. I speak a little Spanish. Hablo un poco de español, but French and Spanish is not that dissimilar, especially in pronunciation. Well, thank you. I think French is a beautiful language. I like the way they pronounce shit. Sounds like they talk with a mouthful of marbles. Bien. So, damn it, I lost my train of thought. Pretty Muslim, you distracted me. What was I saying? Oh, yes. When you look at what has happened since these groups have been able to make their entree into America, paved, right? The road paved, no, don't worry about it. The road paved for them through the struggle, the advocacy, the activism of ADOS. What have they done? Well, Latinos in the main have consistently voted against our interests as black folk. Contrary to what very many may think, Latinos ain't voting for Democrats like we are. Especially when you're talking about South Florida and the Cuban population. The Cubans have been Republican and will be solidly Republican for the near future at the very least. You know, the people who are the Marielitos and the descendants of the Marielitos, right? Remember the movie Scarface? All those people came from Cuba on the boats. That was the Marielito boat lift, right? Those were people who were exiles from Cuba. Brought a lot of prisoners and convicts. Hey, Castro was like, shit, we sending all these motherfuckers over there. Send the refuse too. We don't need them. You look at Asians. Asians are now starting to vote Democratic, but they deviate real seriously from the Democrats in a lot of ways. Here, let me show you something else. Just a little article that I pulled up. As some of you might be familiar with, here in Washington State, like many other states, fam, they have eliminated affirmative action as a means by which to be able to take account college admissions, public sector employment, so on and so forth, right? According to the article here, Democratic lawmakers passed a law repealing the ban on affirmative action. A lot of people don't know this, but King County, one of the largest counties here in Washington State, their county symbol is actually a picture of Martin Luther King. They are named after Martin Luther King, King County, right? Because, you know, liberals. Now, when you take a look at it, though, who is it now that have had their entree into America, who have access to whiteness almost en masse collectively at this point, even when an Asian is not necessarily married to whites or interacting with whites, whites see Asians positively. They look at them with good eyes, not bad eyes. So they allow them entree. As a matter of fact, fam, the data shows that Asians are actually doing better income-wise financially than whites are these days, to show you just how oppressed these bastards are. But who is it, according to the article, fam, that is fighting to have the ban reinstated? Asians. This person here, Con Chiu, who leads the Washington Asians for Equality. What a fucking oxymoron, fam. See, this is what you get when you have people who are politically engaged, because Pretty Muslim is right. This is primarily why ADOS needs to be focused primarily in politics, because we have let the Democrats run roughshod for so long that we have no clue what the hell is happening. So you can get groups like Washington Asians for Equality who are doing everything to ensure that it's equal for them, but not for you. That had access, that does have access, right? Because for all of the so-called talk of the Asian American penalty, right, for admissions into college, the fact is that Asians, by and large, far surpass us in college enrollment. I mean, the numbers aren't even close. So yeah, maybe they might have to give up a slot at an Ivy for an ADOS kid, right? But they basically have their entree into any college that they want. Up here in the Pacific Northwest where I am, Asians are a large minority group. So they're represented. And when I say Asians, I'm not just talking about like Chinese, Japanese, Koreans. No, I'm talking about Indians. I'm talking about Pakistanis and so on and so forth. They have a large showing in the political apparatus up here in Washington State. But now that they have made their entree, now that they have their access to whiteness and Americanness through whiteness, the one thing they want to make sure to do for you is close the door. Oh, we got ours. Now we're all equal. Everything's good. We can stop this affirmative action shit. Need I say more, fam? The crimes of the coalition are clear. At every turn, you have bastards like chameleon Kamala Harris utilizing our narratives to push an agenda that benefits everybody but us. In the Democratic debates the other night, black men were mentioned once. I know, I listened, and I counted. And do you know who mentioned black men? Kamala Harris. And do you know what she was talking about when she referred to black men? Crime. Ski-wee! This bitch announces at a HBCU. Claims to be the blackest black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all. And the only mention she can give to ADOS is in reference to black men in crime. Same with Corny Booker. Fam, you probably didn't know this, but according to Corny Booker, he used to stay in a housing project with a brother named Shaheed who got shot and killed. And this is why he's so against, gun violence and such a proponent of gun control. If you didn't know any better, you would think that the whole background where Corny Booker's parents were professionals and lived essentially a black middle class life, you would think that was bullshit. For all the stories of Corny Booker saying, it's my community, I'm in the community. No, you not. Fam, you've heard it 1,000 times. So what is it that is going to get through to you that when it comes to your interests, your goals, your aspirations, your needs, desires, wants, as a specific American group, as your own ethnic group, your own tribe, when are you going to get it through your head that no one other than you is going to advocate for you? When? Because it boggles the mind when you look at all the evidence that suggests that if there is a coalition, we're busy being out here in front, being the bulwark, while they're busy in back. giving us the old prison handshake. When? This is not to say we hate them. This is not to say we hate any damn thing about them. But we need to tell the truth. We don't do Crayola. Crayola isn't working for us. We can't be treated in America, the land in which we have paid the blood price to be. We cannot be treated as just one fucking crayon in the box. It can't happen. It can't happen. And you don't have allies for the most part amongst Latinos. You don't have allies for the most part among diasporan Africans. You don't have allies for the most part from continental Africans. You don't have allies among so-called white liberals. You don't have allies anywhere. They used your energy, our ancestors' energy, to fuel their own movements for growth, for benefit, for their collective uplift. So much, in fact, that you had to have a black woman create a whole nother spectrum of shit for us to divide ourselves over just to try to get the feminists to look her way. In 1985, Kimberly, right? What the fuck is her first name? Let me look her up. Give me a second here, fam. Because I want to make sure I give you the solid. Kimberly Crenshaw is the sister's name. Kimberly Crenshaw, an academic, a scholar of sorts, if you can call gender studies scholarship, but I digress, came up with an interesting concept, right? Because by 1985, you had seen the birth of the minority era. Everybody in America wanted to be a minority in the 80s. Everybody wanted to be a minority in the 80s. That was when you had the LGBT, or actually it wasn't even LGBT then, it was just gay. That's when you had the gay rights movement jump on board, claiming to be a minority. That was when you had Asians making their entree into the American society at large, claiming to be a minority. That was when you had the Latinos jump on the minority train. Everybody in the 80s wanted to be a minority because point blank pain, clear and simple, it was a money grab. Everybody said, shit, all this pie that they created and set aside in the 1970s with affirmative action programs and stuff like that, why should we let these niggas get it? We minorities too. Women was already bitter and butthurt that we got civil rights and voting rights yet again, but they couldn't get the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, passed. So just like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony was pissed off at black people, the feminists of the 70s and the 80s was pissed off at black people too. Because yet again, the government turned their eye to look at niggas and not white bitches. I told you, fam, they're going to demonetize this one. Please support your brother. Everybody in the 80s, starting in the 80s, wanted to be a minority, and it was clear why they were doing it. Because we also saw for the first time, fam, an actual influx of darker, black, melanated immigrants from other places. Because remember, before 1960 or so, There were only a few. If you were here from somewhere else and you were black, you was basically treated like ADOS. And you knew what side your bread was buttered on. But starting in the 70s, in the 80s, we started to see a large influx of black immigrants come from other places around the world. We're talking Africa, we're talking the Caribbean and other diasporic African places. Now, let me ask y'all all a question. Do you think that those newly minted black people came to America to be black people? Let me just ask you that. Like, I don't think anybody's ever asked that question. Did they come here to be black people? They saw what we went through in the 60s. They saw what happened on Bloody Sunday in Selma with Bull Connor and Alia beating the fuck out of our ancestors. They saw all of it, right? They saw our neighborhoods decimated through white flight and the erosion of the tax base and the removal of jobs overseas in the beginning of globalization. They saw all of that. They saw junkies roaming the streets in our neighborhood from junk being flown in from fucking Southeast Asia. They knew. When they came here, do you think that they came here to sign up to be black folk? Especially when every ethnic group that had any degree of success in America signed on board the white supremacy experiment? Do you think they came here with the mind to be black people? Especially when they came from countries where they predominate. Entire countries where you don't even see no white folks in government. You go before a judge. You don't see nobody white. The prosecutor is black like you. The judges, although they're wearing those funny ass, sheepskin wigs like white folks, are dark as the ace of fucking spades. When they convict you, the jailer is black. If they have the death penalty, your executioner is black. You think they came here so that they can be amongst the lowest bottom caste in America? So why then are we surprised at their lack of full-throated support for our aims, goals, and interests when they never came here with our aims, goals, and interests in mind in the first place? Why are we shocked at the vehemence that we experience, the accusations of xenophobia, the accusations of disrespect to other black immigrants when they never came here with our interest in mind in the first place? Why are we shocked by that? Why does that surprise us so much as ADOS? What, did you think that they were all of a sudden going to have a change of heart and say, you know what, you're right, brother. You're absolutely right. What the white man has done to you in this country is absolutely unconscionable. We will back your play 100%. Is that what you thought? Is that the conversation that you thought we were going to have in the main with our continental and diasporan brothers and sisters? Was that what you thought? Was that how you thought that's how the game was going to go? They ran from a country where they predominate, where they control every aspect of every system in it. Now, mind you, they still have the vestiges of colonialism. White folks still own every damn thing, and so on and so forth. But when they were getting done up or had struggles or hard times, it was other black faces that was doing it to them in a country where they predominate. If they really cared about blackness, why the fuck would they come here? Why are we so shocked about Bob loves Adiola? Adiola already loved Bob. Adiola loved Bob so much that she sold off a whole fucking swathe of her own continental peoples to be the property of Bob. They talk about us being imperialist, us because we claim America as our homeland, that we claim our nationality as American. They want to call us imperialists and the kiss of the ass of white folk. Our African continental brothers and sisters that had contact with white folk have been kissing their ass since forever. Hell, in South Africa, how the hell you gonna free yourself from apartheid under South Africa and still leave white folks in charge of all the finances, all the money, all the resources? Explain this one to me. You're the majority. You predominate. Bantu peoples, Xhosa peoples, you are the country. White folks maybe make up 15% of South Africa. And they own every motherfucking thing. But you got the nerve to tell me about what I need to be doing here in America for my interests with the government that I gotta face? That you ain't putting shit on? That you don't know no history about? That you have paid no price for? We got Nigerians taking roles from ADOS, and we don't even know if these bastards are descendants of slave traders. We don't know if Cynthia Erivo is a descendant of slave traders. She gets to play one of our biggest and brightest luminaries. Make it make sense. So did you all think that we were going to have this great conversation with them where we were just going to have a meeting of the minds and we were going to touch each other's hearts and we were going to be one black people? Fuck out of here. They didn't come here for that. They came here for the same reason that every other ethnic group comes here. And that is to get the bag in the country my ancestors built. And they are firmly and fully willing to sign on with the white supremacy experiment for as long as it takes for them to get the bag. Win, fam. Win. You had our sister Yvette discuss it in great detail. Now you have your brother Mark Black discuss it in great detail. When are we done with aligning ourselves with folk who have clearly, for their own benefit, ensured that the only alignment that they are doing with us is aligning the knife to our backs? When are we done with it? (425-296-1980), fam. It's your turn. Yeah, I think she's a descendant of slave traders too. Because that would be an easy enough question for her to answer what her tribal affiliation is with her Nigerian heritage. But you notice she ain't saying that she's Osu, right? She's not saying she's of the slave class there in Nigeria, right? You know, it would be one thing. Okay, fam, since they was going to select the bitch anyway to play one of our biggest and brightest luminaries, it would be somewhat palatable if it was clear that Cynthia Erivo got her come up and she comes from a people that is treated just as bad as we, right? If she was aligned with a similar history to us, I could almost stomach it. I could say, damn, I know quite a few American actresses, Black American, ADOS American actresses that could have played this role, but at least this sister comes from a heritage that understands our struggle, the misery that we went through. But can't even fucking say that. Because it's likely that she was among the people who sold our asses over here. Caller from 5110, it's your man Mark Black. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, this is Pretty Muslima.
Pretty Muslima. Salam alaikum, sister. No, how are you?
It's Muslima, right?
Muslima. Oh, okay. I apologize.
Yes.
Pretty Muslima. Yes.
That's okay. It's all good. I have to correct people sometimes.
Nah, it's all good, sister.
How you doing?
It's all good, sister. Talk to us. What's on your mind?
You know what? I forgot what I wanted to say.
Hey, I've returned the favor. You distracted me. It was my turn.
I know you say so much French stuff online. I'm like, do we speak French?
Sister, take your time.
God, you know you be all over the place.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, this subject is not complicated, but it is broad.
Well, I always say through the chat that white supremacy is universal. So I feel that they're only holding up the power structure. They are just trying to access being American as much as we are, except we're not doing the work. And so I think the difference now is that Tone and Yvette have woke us up. And so now we're actually putting the real work in.
Yeah.
We're not just saying, oh, I went to go vote and then don't do nothing else.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Never call and see, exactly where's his money coming from, like what's going on. My kid's school is so terrible. So I'm from St. Louis, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're from my neck of the woods. I'm originally from KC.
Are you?
Yes, ma'am. Born and raised.
Missouri?
Yes, ma'am. Shout out to Riverview Projects.
Shut up. Well, okay. So you can relate to a few things.
Yeah, I can.
So anyways, my kids started school out in California, in Oakland. And I decided to come back home like 5 years ago because they're 11 and 12 now. So I felt like I was doing my family a disservice, and them too, by being all the way in California.
Right.
I mean, ADOS life.
Yeah.
You so far away.
Yeah. I mean, so my family's all still in Missouri.
Your family's still there?
Yeah, my mother's still there. Like all my peoples is still in Missouri. The only reason why I'm here is I got kids, and my kids' mother. My kids live up here, so I didn't want to be not in my kids' life. So I moved back here to Washington to be dad to my kids, and it's beautiful up here. There's some opportunities, they real liberal, especially on the west side, of the mountains, right, in Western Washington. They portray themselves to be liberal. So if you black and you got some degree of act right, you can get opportunities and things like that. Whereas in Missouri, they just racist as hell. So,
Yeah, a lot of things haven't changed here. It's too back. I tell people it's extremely racist. Like, you have your degrees of racism.
Yeah.
And I've lived in 3 different states. So I've lived in Missouri, I lived in North Carolina, and I lived in California. Mm-hmm. And North Carolina is just extremely slow, but the white people are surprisingly really nice.
Oh, yeah. And some of the best times I ever had was in the South. I ain't never, I don't believe really that racism is just kept in the South. That's bullshit. Matter of fact, I would argue that white folks are more racist up here in Western Washington than they are down in the South.
That's when I first heard nigger. Like, nigger is when I first heard it. I was in California. I'm like, what the hell? Really? And I feel like St. Louis is extremely racist. But I've never heard it here. People are like undercover racists here. And
Missouri is strange because a lot of people don't know the history of Missouri. Missouri is a slave state, right? So,
right.
There's still places in Missouri that we as black folk, as ADOS, can't go. Like literal sundown towns. Like, you don't want to be there and let the sun go down on your black ass because you may not make it out. Missouri ain't no joke.
I am scared of anything outside of St. Louis and Kansas City, honey. Anything else, I am good.
Yeah. I've been all over Missouri. I've been to Jeff City. I've been to Springfield. I've been to all the different suburbs. I've been to St. Joe. I've been over at East St. Louis. I've been over to the Lou. I've been everywhere in Missouri.
Oh, you traveled it. Oh, I'm scared of white folks.
I'm not scared of nobody, sister. Here's the thing. One of the things that we gotta get past, because you said it's time for us to do the work. One of the things that we have to get past is this fear of whites. And I'm not talking about like they'll hurt us. Yeah, they can hurt us, right? I've had incidents where I've been in situations where I've had to deal with white folks and so on and so forth, fisticuffs, whatever.
No, I mean a healthy fear. The fear, sundown town, you say, that's what I mean. So if I don't know and it's a small town, I'm good.
Here's the thing, though, sister. We
Yeah,
have
go ahead.
we have a fear, though, that in some ways is unfounded. Right? This is not to say that incidents don't happen to us, right? But
Mm-hmm.
interestingly, the way that situations happen, right? There's a concept that I study in psychology called learned helplessness, right? Are you familiar with the concept?
I don't know. Can you explain it to me
Sure,
real quick?
absolutely. So, learned helplessness is the mental pattern that a person develops when circumstances being arbitrary, random, that's important, right? The arbitrary and random nature of it, and also be essentially seen as beyond one's control. Those circumstances don't have to be active in order to control the behavior of the individual. Because we're familiar with places that are sundown towns, and we're familiar that there are places where we can be attacked, Black folk, rather than learning where these places are and simply avoiding these places, just avoid shit altogether, right? We have a learned helplessness, right? Rather than us understanding where the threats are and navigating accordingly, which is what you would do in a reality based scenario. Learned helplessness causes us to never even leave our fucking neighborhoods, right? It causes us to never even go and
Yeah, but
explore
that's what I
different
mean. I
things or
live in three different
situations.
states. So how does that really hold up to that? What are you talking about?
So how is it that affects us, or what why I hold us to that is very simple, right? Being a veteran, being somebody who's traveled across the country and once out of the country. I haven't traveled too many times out of
Uh-huh.
the country, but I've traveled a lot. I've learned that there are always signs of hostility that are displayed towards you. Like, the shit isn't random. You know fairly quickly when you go into a new place whether or not people are friendly towards you or they're hostile towards you, right? They don't tend to
Right.
hide it because home team advantage, right? If they know they're at home and the vast majority of people think like them, they're not going to tend to hide exactly what it is that they think of you. I'll give you a prime example of what I'm talking about. I went through Idaho, through northern Idaho. There's a city in northern Idaho called Coeur d'Alene, right? Coeur
Mm-hmm.
d'Alene is home to many white supremacists, many white separatists, and so on and so forth. Now, at the time, I didn't know that, or at least I didn't have that much of a clue. I was just traveling through Coeur d'Alene, right?
Okay.
So I stopped at sorry about that, caller. I'll take your call and when this one's done here. But I stopped in Coeur d'Alene just to pick up a pack of smokes because I smoked at the time, right? When I got
Okay.
off the bus, because I was taking a Greyhound back to Missouri, I walked into this establishment. There was a man behind the counter, a white man, and three white men sitting at the counter. These three white
Mm.
men covered in swastikas, thunderbolt tattoos,
Wow.
the whole 9 yards, sitting there bold as you please. They eyeballed me as I walked up to the counter, right? I
Mm-hmm.
turned to those three white boys and I said, look, I'm simply passing through. Don't start none, won't be none. But if y'all start some, I'm leaving all of y'all on the floor. And I don't give a damn, right? They made it clear right
Okay.
from word say go that I was not welcome, right? This is what I'm talking about. I would never have had that experience had I never been to Coeur d'Alene, but now that I've had it, I can warn other Black people, should they travel through Coeur d'Alene, what to expect, right? My thing is
Right.
that, however, I'm not afraid to go through Coeur d'Alene. If I need to go through Coeur d'Alene, I'm going through Coeur d'Alene. I'm just simply now aware of what exists in Coeur d'Alene and how to operate accordingly. I don't feel as if I can, that I have to avoid Coeur d'Alene. That learned
Right.
helplessness, sister, that we experience is part of the lineage therapy that I think Yvette talks about a lot. There is a lot of mental health aspects to what we have had to face as ADOS that affects
Plus
our
the
behavior.
psychological warfare that we're going through every day, seeing people get shot down.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
absolutely.
that's a lot. I got white people coming in my job wanting to talk about slavery. I got folks coming in wearing Confederate flags. Like, I don't want to talk about this. I'm on my job.
You know, sister, though, I'm going to tell you, we was built for it. Our ancestors went through the crucible. What we face today is nothing compared to what they had to face, right? That's what inspires me.
This is
If you
true.
want to know what makes your brother do what he do with no fear, is I understand that my ancestors saw the worst of what the experiment known as America has to offer. And they faced it and they lived long enough to make it possible for me to be here. I can live no
That's
less
true.
boldly, no less bravely, no less openly ADOS than they did. Sister, I'm going to give you the last word because I'm going to let some other callers call in, but it was just something else on your mind
I
that you
will.
wanted to.
It was a pleasure. I thank you for taking my call. I probably held it up a very
No,
long
it's no
time because I'm
worries, sister.
long-winded
Don't
like
be a
that.
stranger.
I'm sorry about that.
No, you good,
But
sister.
I told
Thank
my
you.
husband I was going to call in and let you know it's Muslima.
Thank you, pretty
I'm always in the
Muslima, and I
comments.
appreciate your call. I appreciate your eyeballs, your time, your energy, and your call. You have yourself a great one.
Thank you, too.
Yes, ma'am. Salam. Yeah, fam. There's a lot of aspects to how we got to navigate this space, fam. By the way, shout out to D for the support. Thank you for the donation. I really do appreciate it. 425-296-1980. The line is still open. What do y'all think about this topic, about what Yvette and I have touched on, the evidence that we have brought that suggests that there is no coalition? Crayola politics, Crayola economics, Crayola, socializing doesn't work for us. We are not a part of any coalition that works to our benefit. What do y'all think about that? 425-296-1980, fam, is the number. Drop me a line and let me know what you think. Let me kind of go through chat. Yeah, Tablicker said, I found out when I moved to Washington also it's beautiful there. It is. Washington State is beautiful. I tell people all the time, you could drive 2 hours in any direction to be in a completely new environment. You go 2 hours this way, you in the forest. 2 hours that way, you at the ocean. 2 hours this way, you in the mountains, and so on and so forth. It is absolutely beautiful. But make no mistake about it, these white folks up here is just as racist as they are anywhere else. They soft racists. They liberal racists. They pick and choose their advocacy. If you Asian, you got a good goddamn shot of making it up here. If you African, you got a fairly good shot of making it up here. If you black, ADOS, it's hit or miss. Caller from 918, it's your man Mark Black. What's your name, where you calling from, and what's on your mind?
Hello. I've called on Yvette's show before. I go by Ren.
Randy,
So
it's good
I'll
to
go
have
by
you,
that
brother.
here too.
I'm glad you joined us on the broadcast. I hope you decide to become an angry black sheep. We'd love to have you. What's on your mind, fam?
This whole topic. I did want to mention what you were talking about with the other caller. We did. I think we did locate threats in a way. Well, we did safe zones with the Green Book.
Yes.
But we never identified like which areas not to go to. We just only identify areas that we could go to.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm part of the ADLS family by definition. That's just what I am.
Yes,
But I
sir.
still feel a little bit, attached to the idea of Pan-Africanism.
Fair
And
enough.
as far as like when to link up, of course, I know ADOS isn't anti or xenophobic. I've seen that on Twitter. I'm also Inferno on Twitter. If you ever see me,
Oh,
I don't
brother, I
have
think
anything
I'm following
ADOS.
you
That's
on
me.
Twitter. Are you following me on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, right on,
Yes, I
fam.
am. Yes, I am. So I got love for y'all. I'm backing y'all. I might not have it in my profile. I do that for specific reasons. I just don't want to be targeted. But
It's all good,
when
fam.
it comes out, yeah, when it comes out, it comes out.
You know, let me holler at you a minute. Since I got you on the
Mhm.
line here, I like that name, Inferno. But brother
Uh-huh.
Randy, about Pan Africanism. Now, I don't know how
Mhm.
much of my history you know, right? Because this is actually my second channel. I had a channel for about 3 years
Mm.
previously that was under my moniker, Mark Black, right? And
Mhm.
that channel is all Pan-African content, right? Specifically from a Black perspective here in the United States, but Pan-African in orientation. So I actually understand what the draw is for embracing the Pan-African ideology, okay? So with that having been said, you know that I'm not going to come at you on no sideways stuff. Let's have us a
Oh,
conversation, though,
no.
for a second.
I think we all of us, even if they do us, come kind of partly from that. I don't think there's any of us that haven't been to a certain degree believe in the ideology. Even Yvette
No,
said it.
I agree with you. One of the things that I thought was lovely that Yvette said at the conference is she said that, like everybody else, you know what I'm saying, we had our African pendants on and wear the RBG, the red, black, and green, right? And so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, if you look at my avatar on the Mark Black channel, it is the red, black, and green flag, right? With my name on it, right? Here's the thing, however, that I've had to come to grips with when it comes to Pan-Africanism. Because I am not against Pan-Africanism. What I believe at this particular point is that Pan-Africanism is premature. Let me explain my logic to you, fam, and let's see if we can have a meeting of the mind, shall we? The reason why I say that Pan-Africanism is premature is because of two things. First of all, the African in Pan-African does not exist.
Right.
It doesn't exist. African in Pan-African doesn't exist. When you talk about our brothers and sisters from Africa, right, you're not talking about Africans. You are talking about Nigerians. You're talking about Ghanaians. You're talking about Cote d'Ivoirians, Chadians, people from Mali. You're talking about Ugandans. And if you wanted to break it down further, you're talking about Twi. You're talking about Mende. You're talking about Fawn. You're talking about tribal groups. There is no Africa, right? So for us to say Pan-Africa is contradictory on its face because it assumes a unity in Africa that does not exist. Africa is 54 different nations, thousands of different ethnic groups, hundreds of different language groups, and so on and so forth. There is no Africa, right? So when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we're making assumptions that don't hold up according to the data. We're assuming a unity for Africa that already it's not there. It does not exist, right? That's reason number one. And reason number two is actually the simplest reason. The simplest reason why I believe that Pan-Africanism is premature is because charity starts at home. As an ADOS man, have a heart that's 3 sizes too big. There's no struggle for liberation, for freedom, for peace, for justice, for equality, for human rights that I see happening anywhere in the world that does not resonate with me. Right? And I'm certain that that's the same for many ADOS people. We were instrumental in helping to overturn the apartheid regime in South Africa, right? We boycotted brands just like all of the rest of America did in order to boycott, divest, and sanction South Africa until they ended the apartheid regime, right? We stood with our brothers and sisters over in Ethiopia during the famines under the Mengistu regime and so on and so forth, right? There's no struggle anywhere that we have not gotten on board. We stood with the Native Americans at Standing Rock, right here in the United States, when they were trying to run a pipeline through their territories. For everybody that tries to say that we hate Indians or what about the Indians, we backed their play too, even though we know that there were Indian tribes that owned our ancestors to disenfranchise their descendants and so on and so forth, right? But here's the thing to note. At some point, fam, in order for us to ensure our availability for any universal possible African orientation or African unification, we have to be at a place where we can support ourselves in that endeavor. In other words, if we don't do the political, the economic, the social, the psychological, spiritual, what you name it, if we don't do the work to maintain, sustain, and grow ourselves, then we have nothing that we can offer Africa, even if Africa was to unite together under one banner as a united
I
Africa.
totally agree.
So again, fam, it's all right for you to have that feeling of connection, of bond with the continent and with diasporic Africans in general. But I argue that that cannot take primacy of place over your affiliation with your general ties to and your unique lineage and heritage that you bear as ADOS.
I totally agree. I've had to come to terms with that.
Absolutely.
While being subscribed to Yvette and different things, I remember even waking up when I was subscribed to, which is now African Diaspora Channel, which I disagree with him now more than ever with
Yeah.
some of his views.
Yeah, you talking about Brother
But
Phil Scott,
yeah,
used to be
Brother
the
Phil.
advised show. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh huh.
You know, here's the
But
thing, fam. We got to get used to
uh huh.
evolving, right? We have to get used to the idea of change. It is nothing wrong with getting, look, sanity means that you change with new data, right? When we thought we were lost, when we thought that we were castaways, a lost portion of Africa, it
Mhm.
made sense for us as ADOS to orient ourselves toward the continent, right? That was the only place on the planet Earth where we thought we could see a connection, right? But now
Mhm.
that we have this new pair of glasses, fam, this new lens with which to frame our worldview and the paradigm under which we exist, it is no longer tenable for us to pretend that we are lost. We are not lost. We have a nationality. We have an ethnicity. We have an affiliation. We are American descendants of slavery. We are ADOS. We're not lost people anymore, fam. We have a place. We have a
Mhm.
home base right here in the good old US of A. This landmass, Turtle Island, whatever you want to call it, this is ours. We have a nationality. We are American. We have a flag. It's called the red, white, and blue, the stars and bars. For good or for ill, that is what and who we are. And so, with that in mind, it's untenable to continue to face toward a continent where we have not had a connection for 400 years, to deny the obvious history, the obvious heritage, the obvious lineage that we have here. We are not
Yeah.
lost, brother. We are not a lost people. We have an affiliation. We have a tribe. We have a nationality. We have a flag. And damn, who doesn't like it?
I agree. I agree. I find myself being more proud of being from here, knowing more of my history than I did when I was thinking more about Pan Africanism.
Fam, you come
It
from
just
some of the baddest black folk that ever walked the face of the
right.
planet Earth, man. You want to talk about heroes? You got so many to choose
Yeah.
from, you lose count. You got brothers like Bass Reeves. You got sisters like
Oh yeah.
Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. You want to talk about erudite, well-spoken intellects, giants of intellect. You got Frederick Douglass. You got W.E.B. Du Bois, right? Man, you want to talk about people
Yeah.
who could get the information out to the people and help us to understand it. You got teachers like John Henry Clark. You got Mary
Oh yeah.
Churchill. You got Ida B. Wells Barnett. You want to talk about the arts? You got Langston Hughes. You got you God, we lose count. You,
Oh yeah.
in your lineage, in your history, man, you could spend literally the rest of your life studying
Right.
your people and never, ever exhaust what you find. It is inexhaustible. 400 years of being purified in the crucible, the hells of the West, the killing fields of the South, the fields of benign neglect of the North. And it's made a mighty people, fam. A mighty people. We don't have to turn and look at, Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart for examples of good Black literature.
Right.
Hell, we got writers like our beloved sister and ascended ancestor Maya Angelou, who would write rings around anybody. Zora Neale Hurston, James Baldwin. I could go on and on, but I think you get the picture, fam.
I get it.
You are not lacking.
I'm on the same accord now.
You are not lacking, fam. You are not lacking.
And that's why I get a little bit upset now when I hear we were kings and queens instead of teaching about the kings and queens from here. Now that I know more of them, I was more ignorant of our history here. We just had the general history. People, there's still this shame that I feel that Pan-Africans feel about being from here. They have to detach themselves from this continent, but we don't focus on from slavery forward. They want to go from before slavery and focus on that when, like Yvette said, we weren't all kings and queens back then. I mean,
somebody was pulling the plows, fam.
We try to tie ourselves to Kemet.
Yeah, somebody was pulling the plow.
Come from anywhere near Kemet.
Yeah, somebody was making the bricks. I'm sorry, look, damn all that. We was quangs and shit. We wasn't. Somebody was planting the seeds, all right? Somebody was making bricks. Somebody was writing the papers, all right? Somebody was doing shit that wasn't royalty, all right? This whole mythologized African history bullshit, it sends me over the moon because we know it's not the case. Everybody talk about Mansa Musa, the richest man in world history, and all this gold that he gave along the way to his Hajj. But what they don't tell you is Mansa Musa was a slave owner. What they don't tell you is that Mansa Musa aligned himself with Arabs, and Arabs took slaves. He sold his own people to get that gold that he then gave back for Hajj. I'm sorry, but that makes me a little less proud to tell his motherfucking story. Who'd have thought?
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
I think we just attach ourselves to them because they had melanin, and it was an escape hatch to get away from ADOSness. To get away from the slavery, to get away from that.
Thank you. You said it all.
It was an escape hatch.
You said it all right there, fam. I understand why we've embraced Pan-Africanism, why we embrace ancient Kemet, because it is the one thing that takes our minds away from the fact that we are the American descendants of slavery. But I'm here to tell you that the day of you being ashamed of your lineage, of me being ashamed of our lineage, that day is over. We come from some of the baddest black folk that ever lived on this planet Earth, and we're going to make sure that everybody fucking knows it before we're all said and done. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact, fam.
Well, I'm going to let you go.
Oh, I appreciate the call, fam. And like I said, I hope.
I got turned on to you with that one video about the abuse. Man, I teared up. I ain't going to lie to you. I was like, man, this got me in my feelings.
Yeah. Fam, we got some things that we can fix. We got some things that we need to address, because abuse is rampant in our communities, and child abuse, spousal abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. We are damaged people. That don't mean that we can't fix shit. That don't mean that we bad. It just means we got work to do. So I'm glad, fam, that hopefully you stay and become a part of the Angry Black Sheep, man. I would love to have you. And you always welcome to call.
All righty. Have a good one.
You too, sir. Peace. Great call, fam. See, fam, this the thing. We don't have to be attacking Pan-Africans and so on and so forth. How many of us were lost, right? How many of us were lost or thought we were lost? How many of us looked at America and were alienated because we were told that America don't belong to us? Don't join the white man's army. No, you don't want to be running for no political office. You end up just like them white folks and so on and so forth. How many of us have been taught to be alienated from our birthright? Meanwhile, every single nation on the planet is sending people here every day to take advantage of your birthright. And you are the only one who wants to give it up, who wants to give it away. That's madness, fam. That's a sign of the sickness that we dragged, kicking and screaming with us from the plantation. We need lineage therapy like a motherfucker, you heard? Fam, it's getting late. I want to thank the callers. I want to thank you all. Fam, this is ours. We fought for this, right? Our ancestors paid the blood price. When Yvette and I and other people talk about blood and soil, we're not on that, Nazi bullshit and this, that, and the third. No, we're talking about literal blood on literal soil. My ancestors' bones is buried in the dirt of America, fam, and so is yours. They deserve honor. They deserve to be dignified. They deserve to be uplifted. They deserve to be beatified. Hell, if you feel like worshiping them, our ancestors are worthy of being deified. You come from the baddest group of black folk that ever lived on this planet, and don't let nobody tell you the difference. Damn. You know what? I guess I will go ahead and end it. That person hung up. So, fam, thank you for your eyeballs, your time. Thank you to everybody who donated. D, Double C, J Fire. Thank you for the love, fam. If you want to contribute, now's the time to do it. Click the super chat, $2, $5. I don't care. If you really want to support my work, I'm aiming to participate in more events, such as the March in Selma. Help me to get there. I want to be there for you, but I need your help. You told me to ask, so I'm going to ask. I don't want to beg. I won't denigrate myself. But if you feel like supporting your brother's aims in more advocacy for you, which is what I'm all about, please do so. And be prepared for Sucker Free Saturday, where we're going to get it in as usual. So, fam, until then, as always, I want to wish you all love, peace, prosperity, and power, real power to our people.